No. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining this breakout session where we're going to have a conversation about things at Cardinal Plant and how they've changed since transition about 6.5 years ago. And so transition, just we use that word a lot, it's basically referring to the time when the operational control of Cardinal moved from AEP, where it had been for 50 years, to Buckeye Power. So with me, I'm Tom Alban, Vice President Generation for Buckeye Power, Ohio's Electric Cooperatives. And with me this morning at the panel is Bethany Schunn, who's the Cardinal Plant Manager, Eric Lowe, who is the Cardinal Plant Operations Superintendent, Nick Mascia, our Director of Engineering and Performance, and Bill Buzzard, who's the Cardinal Plant Maintenance Superintendent. So we're going to go through, I guess we'll start by thinking about sort of what was going on back in 2018 when we were preparing for transition. And I just want to point out a few things that were germane to our thinking and planning. So Cardinal was a plant that had been in operation for 50 years. It had a large organization and standard sort of practices, operating procedures of how things were done. It had an organizational culture that was going to come along at transition. We were really thinking about how do we move these 300 plus employees from AEP to Cardinal Operating Company and meanwhile maintaining smooth operation of the plants. And you know, there was a lot of stress for people, concern about what might change. So that was a big focus for us. Also, we were going to be transitioning all the support functions, or a lot of the support functions, like engineering support, accounting, IT, HR, labor relations, market operations, that AEP provided to the plant for its operating history. We were going to be transitioning those to Buckeye Power. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how we were going to do that. And we also talked about Cardinal going from being part of a fleet that AEP operates to being a standalone power plant. And that was going to be different. It's almost like being one kid of a large family to being an only child, and very different world and different look. And so there was going to be more accountability, or more autonomy maybe at the plant, but also some more accountability. I would say that we expected transition to be a little bit bumpy, and it was. But we didn't break it, you know, Pat says we didn't break any bones. We skinned some knees. We didn't break any bones. Nothing catastrophic happened. But along the way, we learned that there were opportunities for improvement. So there have been a lot of changes since transition in 2018. Way too many to go into in the amount of time that we have here. So we're going to hit on a few topics and then leave some time for questions at the end. We're going to talk about the Cardinal Safety Program and how it's changed, how the plant personnel and organization has changed since transition. We're going to talk about how we budget and budget adherence and how we think of that differently today than we did back at transition. We'll talk about the Cardinal Byproduct Sales Program and the support organizations that I talked about, how much time we spent sort of thinking and planning for those, and how that's changed, you know, where the support comes from and how it's delivered to the plant. We'll talk about some initiatives that are in place at the plant to continue to improve performance. So we've had major projects completed since transition in 2018. We'll hit on a few of those. It's sort of changed the way the plant looks. Then, of course, where the rubber meets the road is performance. We'll talk about reliability and how we're doing in that regard. And then also some thoughts about the future of Cardinal. So at Cardinal, we begin everything with safety, and we're going to start here today. And I'll ask Bethany, you know, you were an AEP employee, or you were a Cardinal employee before the transition. How do you look at the safety program today, and what did we inherit from AEP, and how's it changed?
Yeah, well, the safety program with AEP was very, you know, a large safety program, and they did a great job of initiating that. But they had a large fleet of plants. They also had a large corporate structure that, you know, helped them out. So when we transitioned with Buckeye, we didn't have that. So we did have to employ some outside resources. We hired a consultant, AmeriSafe, and they kind of assisted us during the way. We had to, you know, change a lot of our policies, you know, review our policies, update our policies. So they did help us with that. Another thing we tried to do is kind of put more of a proactive focus on safety versus reactive. So as you can see on the slide, we talk about increased job observation. So we wanted to get out more in the field, some of our leaders to get out there more in the field and kind of do some job observations, or we call them high-risk walkdowns, and watch the employees, or even contractors doing work to try and kind of see, just get your kind of put your input into it and see if there's anything better that they could be doing or safer. So that's helped, and we actually do those on a daily basis, basically. Another thing that we've done is we've employed, as you can see on the screen, this energy wheel, and we actually got that from benchmarking another utility, and we've used it for about 1.5 years now. It's one of our new initiatives, but it's very simple, it's very easy. You just kind of look at it and look at the different hazards that the jobs can have, and we go down through them, and during the pre-job briefs, or even in our morning meeting, we have everyone kind of talk about their high-risk jobs for the day and, what part of the energy wheel, what type of hazards they could encounter and how to mitigate those. So it wasn't very high-tech, but it was an initiative that was very simple and clear, and it's been a good one that we've had. And probably the last thing is that we've had a new team. We got a new team in place, and we'll talk about that in the next slide, the personnel, but we have a new team in place for our safety, and they're working out really well, and they get out in the field a lot, and a lot of people, we actually just hired one of our hourly employees to be one of our supervisors as well, so that helps because he's been out in the field a lot, and a lot of the people respect and know him.
Agreed. Yeah, he comes with some credibility, so to speak. So you mentioned the new team.
Yes.
Bill and Eric are both new to the plant since transition. You were there, for a year or so leading up to it. So talk to us about how the personnel have changed at the plant and also the organization.
Sure. So like Tom said earlier, at transition, we did bring over all the employees. There were AEP employees from Cardinal. But since then, we did make some changes. We made some personnel changes. Eric and Bill obviously came. They came from the plant that I was at, Conesville plant. They came on board in 2019 and 2020. And we also have made some changes just in interdepartmentally, I should say. So I always say, you got to get the right people on the bus, but you got to also get them in the right seats. So we needed to make some changes to kind of to get everyone on the same page and used to our business model as kind of as a new company. We're a Buckeye now. We weren't AEP anymore. So we also needed to know what kind of support we needed at the plant. So there was a lot of discussions between what kind of support we needed at the corporate office versus what kind of support we needed locally at the facility. So some of the positions that used to be held at AEP corporate, we now brought to the plant, which we'll talk about here shortly, because we thought that was a better fit and would be able to help the plant better.
Thank you. So earlier I talked about inheriting a lot of processes and existing plant culture, and one of the things we inherited was a budget process that fairly quickly we realized wasn't what we wanted it to be. We wanted something to be a little more scope-driven, forward-looking, and so we made some efforts to improve it. So Bill, tell us a little bit about how the budgeting process, the planning process has changed at Cardinal from what we inherited to what we have now.
Yeah, so coming out of that transition, we recognized we need to improve the budget process. What we had wasn't working for us. So one of the first things we did was hire a budget analyst. She works closely with me, pulling reports, pulling that data, so we can see where we're spending money, track that spend, and build a 5-year budget. Something that we could look out 5 years ahead, knew what we was going to spend our money on, have some kind of target to hit. We also worked with the process owners, gave them some more ownership of budgets, to do inspections during outages, upgrade their equipment, assign them that ownership so that they not only could plan that, but justify the projects. So they was very instrumental in that 5-year budget process also. We identified some project IDs, ways to track the money, see what equipment we were spending it on, and how it was impacting day-to-day maintenance costs. Through that, we was able to take the money we're spending day-to-day trying to fix things, build some projects to address that liability, and not spend the day-to-day money, just do a project and get it upgraded and in better shape for the reliability of the unit. We talked about process owners. We had 3, and we have 4 now. Assigning them that budget ownership, and then they were still trying to do day-to-day work, working with OEM vendors, to get more equipment, get different newer equipment. We're a pretty old plant, and those upgrades. And we had a lot on their plate, trying to build these budgets, build projects, justify the projects. So we realized we needed some help there. So we worked with Nick's group and hired some process engineers to kind of come on board and be that middle guy between the O&M and also, our engineering support, like Tom had mentioned, it kind of went away with AEP, so we've kind of struggled there a little bit. So we hired some process engineers. Nick, you want to comment on the process engineers we hired?
Sure, yeah. So as Bill said, following transition, we did create the process engineering group that was comprised mainly of on-site engineering. We assigned them specific equipment, and they assisted with work planning and the development of the O&M budget. This was fairly a new concept, not implemented at AEP, and we really think this new engineering group has helped us develop a scope-based budget at Cardinal.
Yeah, this slide here, this is kind of how we broke our budget out. Three main buckets. The production side, that's kind of Eric's operational day-to-day stuff. The maintenance, so you got a lot of buckets underneath maintenance. Unplanned maintenance is that's that day-to-day work. Your water pump goes out of your car, a motor breaks, things we have to fix every day to keep the plant reliable and keep it running. A couple outage buckets, the forced outage is when we come offline, we're not planning for it. It happens. We got to track that money and see what we're spending. Planned outage, that's some of our bigger outage, longer. We're planning that out. We're spending a lot of money in that to keep that plant reliable, try to run from outage to outage. You get over into the capital side, that's some of the large projects we're going to talk about here in a little bit that we did to address some of the reliability issues we were having, 19 and 20. Also, some of the major capitals that Nick's going to talk about here later that we had to do to meet environmental rules and regulations.
Thanks, Bill. So byproduct sales is kind of a big thing at Cardinal and is becoming bigger. So Eric, talk to us about our byproduct sales program and how that's changed over time.
Sure thing, Tom. Thank you. So byproducts, our product is, of course, the thing that you guys are all interested in, sending electricity down the wires. But when you're a coal-burning power plant, you end up with some stuff left over. And so our goal is kind of, well, let's try to make the best use of these things that are left over that we can, instead of making it a cost to the plant and to all the members. And so there's three kind of big hitters to talk about here when we're talking about byproducts at Cardinal Plant. Gypsum, that's the biggest one by far. It's used for wallboard or drywall production. Fly ash, which is kind of a new opportunity since transition, and so we'll get into that a little bit too. And then bottom ash, which has been, we've sold bottom ash from Cardinal Plant for years and years, but it's a pretty small market. It's a limited use case. They sell it to townships to kind of put on the roads during the winter to help out there, but we're not going to spend a lot of time focusing on that because there's not a lot of sales involved there. So, like I said, gypsum is the big hitter, right? And this is not something that existed at Cardinal Plant 30 years ago, and it's a product of the FGD process. And so FGD, flue gas desulfurization, that's the SO2 scrubbing of the boiler gases. So we use this limestone reagent, mix it in our JBR reaction tanks that we have in all three units at Cardinal. And this is kind of what you get from that reaction, calcium sulfate. And so it's a slurry inside of the tank. It's got a lot of moisture in it. And basically what we do is we run it through a dewatering process. So you can see on the screen there, you've got a dewatering vacuum belt, that left-hand picture. And then there's a lot of other stuff we have to do too, right? We got to move this stuff around the facility so you can see some of the conveyors, some of the storage locations, the commercial dome for gypsum. So that's where the stuff that ultimately we want to put on barges to send to the wallboard plant goes to. And then we have the pile there that is kind of the off-spec pile. You can put good gypsum there if you run out of room in the dome, but stuff that maybe does not meet the quality standard for the byproduct sales, at least for wallboard, may be placed there as well. And so that's one final component. Lots of testing involved in this stuff, right? We have contracts, we have specifications we have to keep up, and so we're doing this around the clock all the time. So how are we doing at this? Well, look at this wonderful graph. This is net margin, I would call it, for gypsum handling. And so there's costs associated with the gypsum. There's revenue we receive from selling it. And you can see that those bars are getting bigger, which means we're getting a higher amount of revenue, and it's offsetting the cost to us and to all of you even more. And so 2023 was a record year. We've got lots of wallboard production gypsum being shipped out. We're receiving a better price for it as of about midway through 2022, if memory serves. And look, why is this? Well, the market is starting to dry up, right, because of other coal-fired power plants going away. And so our product is in more demand than it was before. Not only that, but we are digging this stuff out of our landfill. It's in such demand. We placed a lot of gypsum in that landfill over the years. Much of it was good quality gypsum. We just didn't have a market for it or a place to put it. And now we're actually digging it out of there. So we're making more room out of the landfill. We're receiving revenue for that. And again, the bottom line is that's good for the plant and that's good for all your pocketbooks too.
Thanks, Eric. So yeah, gypsum handling is a pretty mature process at Cardinal. We began back in 2008 when the scrubbers were installed, but now we have another byproduct that's relatively new in fly ash. And so how is that process working out and shaping up for us?
Sure. So the fly ash, as Tom mentioned, is kind of a new process. We commissioned these systems in 2021 and started sales of it in 2022. And fly ash it's the ash that's generated, most of the ash that's generated in the boilers during the coal combustion process. And so we capture it, if you've been on the plant tour, in the electrostatic precipitators, removing that fly ash from the flue gas stream. And we're handling this dry now where it was wet slooshed in the past. And the dry handling systems allow us the opportunity to sell it either as what they call conditioned ash, which has some water mixed into it. And you can see a couple components of that system up on the screen there. And then actual dry ash that's unloaded into trucks and then can be used for concrete production. Okay, so just talking a little bit more about what this process entails. So, you got this great picture of the bonfire up on the screen there. And how is that related to what we're doing here? Well, of course, we're burning the coal, right, to generate this fly ash. And one of the things that we have to be much more mindful of now than in the past is what is the quality of our fly ash? When we weren't selling this stuff, we were just, trying to get rid of it. We didn't really care what the quality was, to be quite honest. We looked at it every now and then for heat rate and other purposes. But now we're focused every day. We're looking at sample data on what they call LOI, which is basically unburnt carbon. And so we don't, all those little sparklers flying around in that picture there, yeah, that's not what we want in our ash. We want all that carbon to be burned up, less than 3% remaining in that ash, okay? And so that's what they're looking for in the concrete. And there's a lot that goes into that. We've got pulverizer rebuilds, we've got boiler tuning that goes into it, and so on and so forth. And so everybody in the plant really is working towards that goal and paying closer attention to it than we ever have in the past. In addition to that, you can see one of the dry trucks there. There's a lot of logistics going on to help shape that market up for how we can actually get rid of this ash. It's not like you just back your pickup up and take a load. We've got to develop that market too.
Yeah, Eric, so you point out, so once it became important, ash quality with the conversion to dry handling in 2021, the plant's done a very good job of maintaining or increasing awareness of ash quality and maintaining or developing or producing a consistent product maybe. But there's a market, right, that we need. So tell us about the fly ash market and how that's shaping up for Cardinal Ash.
Yeah, so pretty briefly here, like I said, everybody at the plant is really involved in one way or another in the quality aspects of the ash. But there's a few people I want to point out at the corporate office and at the plant that specifically work on this marketing and logistics aspect, and that's Randy Kiefer, who is our director of fuel procurement and byproduct sales, and then Scott Bloster, who is our material handling logistics coordinator at the plant. They have done a lot of work with a company called Separation Technologies, and we've basically partnered with them to market our fly ash. And so you can see this really cool map here that is showing where Cardinal Plant fly ash has gone since we started selling it back in 2022. And so, over Ohio, as you would expect, but also, kind of going over towards the eastern seaboard. And so these are all sites that have received Cardinal fly ash, 8 states and even up into Canada. And so we're really happy with how that market is shaping up and how things are going there. And again, it's all it's all a game of, how much revenue can we receive for this ash that would otherwise be a cost to us and to all of you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So let's switch topics for a minute here. And Nick, I'll ask you to talk about the engineering organization, your organization, and how that's changed since transition in terms of how we support the plant with engineering.
Sure, thanks, Tom. So after the transition, we really lacked corporate support for Cardinal, and so to compensate for the loss of AEP technical support. So we hired on-site engineers to help us fill that gap, and we think it's really paid off. So we focus on hiring talented engineers that could learn quickly, had the right attitude, and weren't afraid to get dirty. As you can see in this photo here, we have an engineer doing an inspection on a piece of equipment, and we really think these inspections help us build a scope-based budget out at Cardinal. We also retained a few plant engineers following the transition. We've leveraged their experience and expertise to help train the new engineers on site. And then when we lack the ability to do engineering on site, we hired third-party engineering support to do that for complex issues. And then we're also members of the Electric Power Research Institute, and we are focused on leveraging as much as we can from them. Any technical support they can provide, they really do a good job and help us out.
Thanks, Nick. Clearly, that's not an electrical engineer in the picture, is it?
No, that's correct, yeah.
Thanks. So, department initiatives. We've got a lot of initiatives that we've developed and put in place to help drive Cardinal performance forward and make it better. And so, Bethany, I'll ask you to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have in place.
Yeah, so some of the initiatives, we continually try to do process improvements and have different initiatives, but I wanted to touch on a few on the slide here, and the first one being standard work. So about early 2022, we decided we wanted to put a team together called the Standard Work Team, and it basically consisted of one team leader and then 5 individuals that were solely working on standard work. And what we mean by standard work is basically a step-by-step of how to do jobs. It could range from something very simple to something very complex. So, it could range from rebuilding a pump to completing a startup. So, and on the screen, you can see that's just one of our sample cover pages from the standard work. So we had a lot of procedures before, but they were, in different formats. They were in different folders. They weren't very well organized. So we wanted to try and create a single format, which is what you see up there, and that's just the cover page. And then we kind of created a library for them. So they're all stored on our SharePoint site, and the team of Standard, they assist with that. And we've kind of dedicated some of those individuals to assist with certain departments. Like one might have been helping with material handling, one might have been helping with operations. And we tried to get a vast array of people that had different backgrounds. We have a maintenance person in there. So it really has helped, and I think the reason we did that was we were trying to reduce the chance for mistakes. We had a lot of new people coming in. We had people that had been there, but everyone was doing something a different way. It was the same task, but they were completing it a different way. So we thought that with the standard work, that would try and, kind of standardize it, so to speak, so that everyone's doing the same thing, and they had a procedure on how to do it. So with the standard works, though, they're actually, we have them listed in classes. So we have like class 1, class 2, class 3. So, class 1, you have to take it out with you. It's a circle slash. You have to go down through. Class 3 may just be a reference document. You don't have to take it out with you. That might be a job that, is pretty familiar. So that there on the screen, that would be our biggest initiative I wanted to talk about today. A couple others just to touch on. Operator minor maintenance. That was basically to free up some of our maintenance time, and operators are already doing rounds, so we figured that they could do some minor maintenance tasks while they're out doing the rounds. Our maintenance department is, getting smaller, so they need to focus on the larger jobs, whereas operators can focus on some, filter changes or something smaller. So that's what the operator minor maintenance is. The other thing I wanted to touch on was just benchmarking. So we're actually, we do a lot of benchmarking with other facilities, OVEC, some other cooperatives, just to kind of learn their processes, and we kind of share processes. So that's really helped in each of the departments as well. And last one I wanted to touch on was the contractor management. With that, we are actually starting a new software called MyTrack, and it's going to try and, we have a lot of contractors on site when, during outage season. So we wanted to kind of have a better handle on that. So that's just underway now. It's just rolling out probably just this summer. So we don't have too much information on that yet, but it looks to be like a really great tool.
Thanks, Bethany. So, there's a lot of it changing at the plant in terms of initiatives and process, organizational changes, but we've also made some investments in environmental compliance projects, and so there's been some physical changes at the plant as well since transition. So Nick, talk to us or tell us a little bit about some of the major projects we've completed for environmental compliance.
Sure. So this project, the dry fly ash conversion, involved converting the handling of wet ash to dry ash. Wet system to a dry system is to meet the coal combustion residual rule. We send ash to the silo here. It's then dumped into trucks to be hauled off site and sold. This project was commissioned in 2021 and was a very large undertaking by Buckeye. The fly ash reservoir 2 stopped receiving ash when we completed the dry fly ash system in 2021. This is currently being dewatered right now, and then we're going to cap it with a synthetic liner, and then we're going to cover it with a natural grass layer. And then to comply with the effluent limitation guidelines and the coal combustion residual rule, we also had to dewater our bottom ash pond, then line the bottom ash pond, repurpose it, and segregate it. One portion of the pond handles bottom ash, and that is a closed loop system, and then the other portion of the pond handles balance of plant drainage flows.
Thanks, Nick. So yeah, that's about, between those projects, I think over $100 million was spent for environmental compliance projects that, new and then closure of existing environmental liabilities. But we've also been investing money to maintain or improve plant reliability. So Bill, I'll ask you to talk a little bit about some of the reliability improvement projects we've taken on.
Yeah, so reliability is one of our goals at the plant. We're trying to make it from our spring outage to our fall outage, and then from our fall outage back to our spring outage with as little forced outage as we can. So we plan for these larger spring outages. We build projects for them. So in 2020, we were seeing some issues with the first vertical reheat stage on Unit 2. Starting to get some tube leaks coming out every couple weeks for the tube leaks. We put a project together to replace that. Unit 1 was actually replaced in 2015, so he's probably a little bit behind the game on Unit 2. But you see there in the picture, that would be with all the elements cut off. The lower tubes would be where the bundles go up. That section should look a little bit like what's to the left of that scaffold there. So that's the work in progress. It's all cut out, getting ready to go back during one of our bigger outages.
So yeah, so what we're looking at is actually inside the furnace at one of the units at Cardinal.
Correct. So this here's in the upper part of the main furnace. We're doing some weld overlay. So we had some tube leaks starting to bite us. Our forced outage rate in the main furnace was going up. So we brought a company in and actually did a scan of the internal boiler. Rode a robot up and down the wall tubes, got thickness readings on them. We kind of identified areas that we needed to do some work. So on Unit 1 and 21, we put about 5,000 square feet of this weld overlay on there, and in Unit 2 and 23, we put another 5,000 square feet. So this Inconel overlay kind of does two things. One is it gives us our wall thickness back on those tubes, so we're high pressure. And it also gets a lot of corrosion and erosion. So that Inconel has a higher corrosion resistance. So it's building that wall thickness back up. It's a lot cheaper than putting new tubes in and rebuilding the boiler. So we did this in 21, 23, and we've had pretty good success with tube leaks in the main furnace since then. This is something that got us about the same time. We was getting a lot of tube leaks up in the header attachments between the header and the penthouse roof, all the way around the boiler. So what you're looking at here, that floor is actually the roof of the main furnace. So we would have been below it in the previous picture. And then you see the windows that are cut out. You can't just remove all those tubes at one time because the boiler actually hangs off that. So we're cutting windows out, welding those tubes back in. So we placed all that on Unit 2 in 2021, and then in 2023 on Unit 1.
Thanks, Bill. So we've spent a lot of money in summary in the last 6.5 years since transition, maintaining environmental compliance and then also to address reliability concerns. Eric, talk to us about what have we gotten out of that investment? How's the plant been performing?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to report that the data supports the conclusion that Cardinal Plant has been more reliable since transition. And so I see some familiar faces. Some of you guys that were here last year may remember Bethany and I stood up here and talked to you about our performance during Winter Storm Elliott and how Cardinal did during that time and when so many others did not perform, and also some of the record runs that we had on all 3 units and on individual units. And so if you look at the little table that's up on the screen now, we've had a couple more really good runs since that time last summer when we talked to you. And so on the table, all of the darker blue shaded runs, they're all over 100 days, and these are all the top individual unit runs since the FGD was installed, closing in on 20 years ago now. And those dark ones are all since the transition, okay? The 2 yellow ones that are up there are 2 new runs that have happened since we spoke to you last summer. And so Unit 2 had a very good run, kind of like what Bill was talking about earlier, where we ran basically all the way from fall until the spring outage, 157 days, just 2 days short of the run we had last year. And then we had another really good run here recently on Unit 1, 103 days. And that one didn't end the way that we wanted it to. You do have some bumps in the road sometime, but still in historical perspective, 103 days is a really good run for any of the Cardinal units, including Cardinal Unit 1.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
And so forced outage rate, Bill was talking about that, so real quick, the red graph, or the red bars on the graph, those are the forced outage rates for all 3 Cardinal units in the 6 years immediately prior to transition. The gray bars that are smaller, lower is better. That's the forced outage rates for all 3 Cardinal units in the 6.5 years since transition. So in every case on Cardinal 1, 2, and 3, the forced outage rates are better since transition has occurred than in the 6 years prior.
Thank you. Yeah, and the gray bars, they're not where we would like to be. But we're moving in the right direction. So we work, and the organization we have in place there is focused on trying to figure out what can we do to keep driving performance, better in the right direction. So this slide, we think, sort of tries to sum up what we've talked about and what we try to do at Cardinal every day. We need to be a provider of affordable electricity. We need to be environmentally responsible. We need to be reliable. And sometimes it's hard to balance all of those things, but that's what we work to do every day. That's our mission. So some would say that's very difficult. You got to there's trade-offs, and we recognize that, but that's what we work toward every day. So we're working to maintain a balance of environmentally responsible, affordable, and reliable electricity. But we're also thinking about the challenges in front of us. So I'll ask our panel to briefly touch on a few of these challenges that we see going forward.
Sure. So the first bullet talks about the 2-unit operation. So at the end of 2028, we'll be retiring our Unit 3, and we'll be operating with Units 1 and 2. So we at the plant are trying to prepare for that now. We need to look at staffing, how the departments are organized, manpower levels. So that's definitely on the forefront, and we're looking to that now because it'll be here before you know it. So we need to start planning for that now.
Yes, and we also, we want to continue to build a culture out at Cardinal. We have quite a few younger engineers out at Cardinal, and we foresee Cardinal being around for a long time. We want to retain these younger engineers and help develop them. We think a strong culture will help do that, and because they're going to be the future leaders out at Cardinal.
We also are going to have some more environmental projects. So we actually just broke ground on one for complying with 2020 ELG rule. And so we're going to be adding a biological treatment system to our existing FGD wastewater treatment system. And that system is going to be installed over the course of the next year and will be operational no later than the end of next year. And so, you guys have all heard what's in the news. There's some other regulations potentially in the pipeline. And look, we don't know how those are going to turn out yet. There's going to be legal challenges and so on and so forth. But we're studying all of the potential outcomes because, we want Cardinal to continue to be there, to be a reliable source of power for all of you. And so, we're looking at a bunch of different options for what that may look like for us.
Everything we continue to do is, maintain reliability and the budget. It's a struggle both ways. You're trying to increase reliability but maintain a flat budget. So we continue to work on that, develop the culture at Cardinal, and just get better every day.
Thank you. So that kind of concludes our prepared remarks today. We wanted to finish with a slide of some of the folks at Cardinal that helped make everything possible. It's a team effort, both at the plant and at OEC in Columbus, at Buckeye's office, to support services that help Cardinal be successful and continue to get better. So we do have some time left. If there are questions, we'd be happy to. Yes, Matt.
Yeah, just wondering if you can talk a little bit about the feasibility, or probably lack of feasibility, of carbon capture at Cardinal, and then also feasibility of converting to, say, gas, if we're forced with either one of those options at some point.
Okay, sure. Carbon capture for a plant the size of Cardinal has never been done anywhere, so that's a major problem. There's a co-op, it was a GRE working toward that. A unit half, well, like one Cardinal unit, one of the unit one, say, or two, their projected cost is close to $2 billion, and it's not going to capture the 90% that the rule that's presently out there requires. And if we're able to capture it, the geology in the area near Cardinal is not going to allow us to just put it in the ground there. So like they can up, sort of in the north central plains. So then there needs to be a pipeline or somewhere to take it, and that's equally infeasible, I would say. In addition to the capture problem, then you got to take it somewhere. So converting to gas, that's more feasible. I don't know if it's economical. There is gas in the area. We're studying what it would cost to get gas to the plant. But what you would end up with is a relatively inefficient unit running on gas, when if you compare it to a combined cycle, a new combined cycle unit would be much more efficient in terms of 60% or so of the fuel per kilowatt hour would be needed for a combined cycle versus compared to converting Cardinal to gas. So the conversion to gas is feasible. But the economics are going to make it tough. I mean, we're going to fight these rules as long as we can, and hopefully not be forced into that corner. But running gas to the site for a different form of generation, that's certainly something that we will be studying.
The transition from owning our plant, not owning a plant, AEP running a plant for 50 years, and us moving to running the plant, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of problems, a lot of those things. But what do you think is the biggest advantage we've seen from running the plant ourselves, and what problems have you seen?
Well, I'll start, I guess. Then I'll let the others chime in. Advantages it's more transparent. Right. Certainly, from my view, I have much more transparency to what's going on at the plant. We've been able to dig into how the plant's organized, get more into the way these processes that we inherited. We really didn't fully understand them. As we dug more and got to learn more about them, we found opportunities for improvement. So that's certainly an advantage. Bringing in folks new to the plant with a fresh set of eyes, that has also helped us, I think. To again, look at things differently and find opportunities for improvement.
Yeah. Oh, I would say that one of the advantages is, just having kind of the flexibility to do more things our way. With AEP, there was, you only had certain people at the plant, and then they had certain people at the corporate office, and sometimes it was harder to get the assistance you needed, or to get to those levels. And, I feel like we have the flexibility now, like we said, if instead of having someone at the corporate office, we bring them to the plant, and there's engineers now at the plant, or, HR at the plant. So I think that helps for at least, for more accessibility to the different individuals or groups that you need.
Yeah, and I'd say some of these projects that, we talked about, AEP days, those wouldn't happen as fast because, it was so much red tape to get through and get them approved. where, we could pull the data, justify it to Columbus, get those approved and start working on getting those into the next Audi cycle. So that definitely sped up that process of getting that liability addressed.
I'll just say, for myself too, the motivation to go to work every day, to me, when you're working with the co-op model, there's just more motivation there than, when you're in a competitive enterprise that AEP was. AEP used to, serve customers, and when deregulation came to Ohio, it almost became kind of sterile, the feeling of, this is all really just about the money. And so I love, yes, we want to provide a great value for everybody and do a terrific job and do it responsibly and reliably, but also just serving the members. To me, that makes what we do worthwhile, and know that we're making a difference in people's lives. And I really like that about going to work every day.
Yeah, I've seen that, Eric, from your notes. Anytime we get extreme conditions on the system, we put in a wrench alert, which means don't do any unnecessary maintenance or take any unnecessary risks. And Eric's notes typically say we need to be available for our cooperative members, right? Because they're going to need electricity, tomorrow when it's super cold or super warm. So I see it in practice. What you're saying, I see in practice.
And I'll just add to what Bill just said. I mean, when we transitioned, they didn't have a great budget, and I think we focused on really developing this scope-based budget, and it's helped us become reliable.
At the beginning, you were talking about safety. You were focusing on safety. Do you have an actual safety supervisor?
Yes, we do. We have a safety supervisor on site and a safety and health specialist on site. Yeah, so they are at the plant, and they're the ones that basically do all of our update all of our procedures, policies, roll out the initiatives.
Hi, Tom. As you all are planning to go to a 2-unit system, I know there's things that Units 1 and 2 are connected to Unit 3, and as we shutter Unit 3 in 2028, what's the plan? Can you speak to the crowd of just what that looks like when we move into putting Unit 3 in idle or shutting it down?
Well, we're studying in terms of what's going to happen with Unit 3. So Unit 3 does provide some services to the rest of the plant, like water treatment, that will be vital to keep Units 1 and 2 operating. So we're studying how to address that right now, whether we move those things and spend money to move them over to 1 and 2 that enables us to do something else with Unit 3, or whether we maintain some portion of the systems at Unit 3. So we're definitely looking at that. We're also expecting that the workforce is going to be smaller. It will be smaller by some number of folks, and we've started studying that. And then how do we get there? I guess fortunately or unfortunately, the demographics of the plant staff seem to indicate that there's going to be enough attrition that we won't necessarily have to reduce staff any other way, right? So I think a bigger challenge for us might be how do we maintain operation of all 3 units through 2028 with an aging workforce that wants to retire. What they say, not outlive their usefulness, but I forget the other term you used, Richard. So we're working on those things, Tim. We don't have all the answers at this point, but we're certainly studying what the options are. And then if there is some possibility to take gas into the site and maybe put some other form of generation on there or some other sort of thing, even with gas or oil or what have you, but that'll drive some of that decision making too.
Do you guys have any thoughts or setups for if politics would change and common sense would come back into play? That when we figure out we're going to need power, is there a possibility to have all of them come back online someday, or do you ever talk about any of that stuff?
We talk about how it's illogical to be planning to retire Unit 3 when it seems we need all the dispatchable generation that we have in this country. However, would Unit 3 be selected through some process with PJM and the sort of the powers that run that to continue to operate? It's hard for me to see how that happens. We're starting to make investments in Unit 3 that look toward a 5-year remaining life or 4-year remaining life as compared to, a more infinite remaining life. So we haven't really shot ourselves in the foot yet, made it impossible to continue to operate the unit, but that's coming. I'm thinking more along the regulatory construct that we live under and how that's going to lead to a conclusion to keep Unit 3 operating. It's hard for me to see that.
Yeah, but you look around, hear stories about what's going on in Germany where they were burning lignite again and so on and so forth because of all these nuclear plants shutting down. And look, that's not going to happen in this country. There's one just up the road from us, the Samus plant. That used to be a First Energy plant. They shut it down. Was it earlier this year? It's basically a hole in the ground already. There's no coming back from that. And the same thing for the place that Bethany and Bill and I all used to work, the Conesville plant. It's gone. It's not coming back.
Now, if there's some reliability event between now and the time Unit 3 is retired and we come to our senses, that might change things. But the project that Eric talked about, we're breaking ground on, basically in addition to our water treatment facility, that's being designed to handle the water from 2 units, not the third. So we would have some additional investment to make, to be able to continue to operate Unit 3 unless some change, forces or allows us to not make that investment. Ryan's giving me the, well, we appreciate your attention and questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.